The Honky Tonk Man was the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time, a rock and roll rebel who strutted his way into WWE history. The Honky Tonk Man, with his slicked back hair, sunglasses, and signature guitar, was a mainstay of the late 80s wrestling scene. But time waits for no man. Honky Tonk Man persona turned 71 this year. What exactly are the controversies that made him so controversial? Let's get into them. Born Roy Wayne Ferris on January 25th, 1953, Honky Tonk Man became one of the most unforgettable characters in wrestling. You might know him best from his time in the World Wrestling Federation, now WWE, where he made waves between 1986 and 1991. With his Elvis-inspired look and cocky attitude, he was impossible to miss. During his time in the WWE, Honky Tonk Man became known for his cool, cocky, and bad persona. His record-breaking title reign saw him face off against legends like Randy Savage, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, and the Ultimate Warrior. He was a true showman, never missing a chance to rile up the audience with his brash attitude and unforgettable promos. But along with the fame came plenty of controversy. Today, we'll dig into some of the incidents and decisions that have kept Honky Tonk Man in the headlines for both good and not-so-good reasons. One of the most infamous moments in Honky Tonk Man's career happened during a heated feud with Jake the Snake Roberts. The plan was simple. Honky was supposed to smash a guitar over Roberts' back during a match. Now, wrestling fans know that props like guitars are usually gimmicked, meaning they're made of lightweight materials that break easily without actually hurting anyone. But in this case, things went horribly wrong. According to Roberts, instead of using a breakable balsa wood guitar, Honky accidentally grabbed a real one. When he swung it, the impact caused serious damage to Roberts' back. It wasn't just a one-time injury. This incident reportedly led Roberts down a painful path of dependency on pain medication, which affected him for years. This moment sticks out because it was a real-life injury caused by an in-ring accident, and it left a lasting mark on both Roberts and Honky Tonk Man's careers. While wrestling is scripted, accidents like this remind us that things don't always go according to plan, and the consequences can be severe. Now, Honky Tonk Man isn't just known for what he did in the ring. He's also gained quite a reputation for his opinions, and let's just say he's not shy about sharing them. Over the years, he's made plenty of controversial comments about other wrestlers. He's criticized legends like Bret Hart, Hulk Hogan, and Jerry Lawler, sometimes focusing on their abilities in the ring and other times diving into their personal lives. These comments have sparked public feuds with some of wrestling's biggest names. While some fans find his honesty refreshing, others see him as a bit of a troublemaker who's always stirring the pot. Either way, Honky's remarks have kept him relevant long after his prime in the ring, but this outspoken nature has come at a cost. Many wrestlers, including those he's criticized, aren't exactly thrilled with him. It's a double-edged sword. Being vocal has kept him in the spotlight, but it's also alienated him from parts of the wrestling community. Honky Tonk Man is very much a product of the wrestling world of the 80s, and he's made it clear he isn't a fan of where wrestling has gone in recent years. He's been openly critical of modern wrestling, saying it lacks the storytelling and characters that made wrestling so entertaining in his era. He's often expressed frustration with the high-flying, fast-paced style that's popular now, saying it's more about flashy moves and less about the psychology of a match. In his mind, wrestling should be about building a story between good guys and bad guys, with a slower pace that lets the audience get emotionally invested. Some fans agree with him, missing the old-school style, but others think he's just stuck in the past and can't appreciate how wrestling has evolved. Either way, his views have earned him a bit of a grumpy veteran label, as he continues to critique the direction of the business he once thrived in. Not only this, back in 1990, Honky Tonk Man was involved in a situation that caused quite a bit of drama. He was reportedly asked to lose to Bret Hart in a match at SummerSlam, which is a pretty standard part of wrestling. You win some, you lose some. But Honky wasn't having it. He refused to lose to Hart, believing that it would hurt his character and legacy. Now in wrestling, refusing to lose can be seen as a big deal. It's all about putting over the next big star, and by not going along with the plan, Honky stirred up some tension with WWE management and other wrestlers. Bret Hart went on to become one of the biggest names in wrestling, but this incident showed that Honky Tonk Man wasn't willing to take a back seat, even for someone on the rise. It was a bold move, and it didn't necessarily make him any friends backstage, but it showed just how seriously he took his own image and legacy. Wayne Ferris, better known to wrestling fans as the Honky Tonk Man, started his career back in 1977. He kicked things off in Malden, Missouri, wrestling for promoter Henry Rogers, alongside his training buddy, Coco Beware. It didn't take long before Ferris moved on to Memphis Wrestling in 1978. At first, he was mostly a jobber, a wrestler who loses to make others look good. Wrestling under the name Dynamite Wayne Ferris, he wrestled all over the southern U.S., hitting places like Birmingham, Dothan, Mobile, and Pensacola. His career took a big leap when he teamed up with Larry Latham to form the tag team known as the Blonde Bombers. The two were paired together by wrestling legend Jerry Briscoe in Florida Championship Wrestling, and they quickly made a name for themselves. Later, they were managed by Sergeant Danny Davis when they returned to the Memphis scene. One of their most famous moments was the wild Tupelo concession stand brawl, a brutal fight against Jerry Lawler and Bill Dundee that became a major event in Tennessee wrestling history. Through the early 1980s, Ferris continued to wrestle in various promotions, including the American Wrestling Association, AWA, Jim Crockett Promotions, World Wrestling Council, WWC, and more. He racked up multiple championships, both as a singles competitor and in tag teams. Ferris made his WWF debut in July 1986 under his now famous name, the Honky Tonk Man. His first appearance on TV came on the August 30th, 1986 episode of The Body Shop. The WWF introduced him as a good guy at first, with a fun-loving, Elvis-inspired character, even receiving an endorsement from the WWF World Heavyweight Champion, Hulk Hogan. But the fans weren't really feeling it. His early matches included wins against the likes of Terry Gibbs and Randy Savage, by disqualification, but the crowd response was lukewarm at best. In response to the negative reactions from the fans, Honky began cutting promos asking for a vote of confidence, where he pretended to care about what the audience thought. Instead, he insulted them, following in the footsteps of comedian Andy Kaufman. When the results came back negative, Honky officially turned heel, became a villain, and aligned himself with manager Mouth of the South Jimmy Hart. Together, they created one of the most iconic characters in WWF history. Honky Tonk Man's career took off when he won the Intercontinental Heavyweight Championship from Ricky the Dragon Steamboat on June 13, 1987. He was originally supposed to be a short-term champion, but due to various circumstances, including Jake Roberts' drug test failures, Honky held on to the title much longer than expected. In fact, his reign would become the longest in the championship's history at 454 days, a record that stood until 2023. To keep the belt, Honky often got himself disqualified or counted out in matches, knowing the title couldn't change hands that way. During this time, he also began using his now famous entrance song, a 50s rock and roll inspired theme performed by Ferris himself. One of Honky's biggest feuds during this period was with Randy Savage. Their matches were some of the WWF's most exciting at the time, with the tension boiling over when Honky shoved Miss Elizabeth, Savage's manager, during a match. This led to the formation of the iconic Mega Powers when Savage and Hulk Hogan teamed up to battle Honky and his allies. Another notable rivalry was with Brutus the Barber Beefcake, who repeatedly tried to cut Honky's signature ducktail hair. They squared off in a series of matches, with Beefcake coming close to winning the Intercontinental Championship at WrestleMania 4. Honky's title reign finally came to an end at SummerSlam 1988, when the Ultimate Warrior shocked everyone by pinning him in just 31 seconds, ending a historic championship run. The Honky Tonk Man's career skyrocketed when he won the Intercontinental Heavyweight Championship from Ricky the Dragon Steamboat on June 13, 1987. At the time, it seemed like his reign would be short-lived, as he was only supposed to be a temporary champion. But things took a different turn due to various circumstances, including Jake the Snake, Roberts failing drug tests, which led to Honky Tonk Man holding on to the title far longer than anyone expected. In fact, his reign lasted a record-breaking 454 days, making it the longest in the history of the Intercontinental Championship, a record that stood untouched until 2023. This impressive title run really cemented the Honky Tonk Man as one of the top villains in the World Wrestling Federation at the time. One of the main reasons Honky was able to keep the title for so long was because of his sneaky tactics. He knew that a championship couldn't change hands unless he was pinned or forced to submit, so he often found ways to avoid losing cleanly. He would get himself disqualified or counted out during matches, knowing that the title would stay with him in those situations. This not only frustrated his opponents, but also drove fans crazy, making him one of the most hated characters in the WWF. It was around this time that Honky also started using his famous entrance song, which was inspired by 1950s rock and roll. Fun fact, Honky Tonk Man himself, whose real name is Wayne Ferris, performed the song. The catchy tune became a key part of his persona, emphasizing his Elvis Presley-inspired gimmick. It was all part of his larger-than-life character, a flashy, arrogant guy who thought he was the greatest performer in wrestling. One of the most memorable moments of Honky's reign was his intense rivalry with Randy Macho Man Savage. Their matches were some of the WWF's most thrilling events at the time, with crowds fully invested in the back and forth between these two larger-than-life characters. The feud took a dramatic turn when Honky Tonk Man went too far and shoved Miss Elizabeth, who was Savage's manager and real-life wife. This bold move infuriated Savage and set the stage for a legendary alliance. After the incident, Savage joined forces with Hulk Hogan to form the iconic Mega Powers, one of the most famous tag teams in wrestling history. Together, they battled Honky Tonk Man and his allies, providing fans with some unforgettable moments in the ring. Honky also had another big rivalry during his time as Intercontinental Champion, this one with Brutus the Barber Beefcake. Beefcake, known for his barber gimmick, had one goal in mind: to cut Honky's signature ducktail hairstyle. This added a fun and unique element to their matches, as fans eagerly waited to see if Beefcake could finally get his hands on Honky's hair. Their rivalry reached its peak at WrestleMania 4, where Beefcake came incredibly close to winning the Intercontinental Championship. Even though Beefcake didn't manage to take the title, their feud was one of the more entertaining storylines of that era, showcasing Honky's ability to keep people engaged, whether they loved or hated him. After an impressive 454-day reign, Honky's time as champion finally came to an end at SummerSlam 1988. But it wasn't just any title loss. It was one for the history books. The Ultimate Warrior, known for his high-energy entrances and explosive in-ring style, shocked the world by defeating Honky Tonk Man in just 31 seconds. The match was over before anyone knew what was happening. Warrior stormed the ring, took down Honky with a few powerful moves, and pinned him, just like that. This quick and decisive victory sent the crowd into a frenzy and marked the end of one of the most memorable championship reigns in wrestling history. Honky Tonk Man's record-setting run with the Intercontinental Championship helped solidify him as one of wrestling's all-time great heels. And though he never reached those heights again, his legacy remains strong. Honky Tonk Man's time in the spotlight may have peaked in the late 80s, but his impact on wrestling is still felt today. His record as the longest-reigning Intercontinental Champion stood for decades, a testament to how significant his run was. Even though he played the villain for most of his career, fans can't deny the lasting impression he left on the sport. In addition to his title run, his catchy theme song, Elvis-like persona, and feuds with top stars like Randy Savage and Brutus Beefcake all helped make him one of the most recognizable figures in professional wrestling. And despite losing his title in such dramatic fashion, Honky Tonk Man's legacy as one of wrestling's greatest characters is firmly cemented. In the years since his historic reign, Honky has made sporadic appearances in wrestling, often showing up for special events or nostalgia shows. But even after all these years, the image of Honky Tonk Man strutting to the ring, guitar in hand, remains a fond memory for wrestling fans. As we've explored, his career was filled with unforgettable moments, fierce rivalries, and yes, some serious controversies. His infamous incident with Jake the Snake Roberts is a stark reminder that while wrestling is scripted, the physicality is all too real. Such moments have kept the conversation alive long after he left the ring. His outspoken nature and candid opinions about fellow wrestlers have stirred the pot, ensuring that he remains a topic of discussion even in today's wrestling landscape. Yet despite all the drama and headlines, it's impossible to overlook the legacy he built. The Honky Tonk Man holds the record for the longest Intercontinental Championship reign, a title that cements his status as one of the greatest heels in wrestling history. His feuds with legends like Randy Savage and Brutus the Barber Beefcake showcased his ability to connect with fans, whether they loved him or hated him. Though his time in the spotlight may have peaked in the late 80s, the influence he wielded over the wrestling world continues to resonate today. His catchy theme song and unique character have become nostalgic symbols of that era, reminding us of a time when wrestling was filled with colorful characters and unforgettable storylines. If you enjoyed this deep dive into wrestling history, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more fascinating stories about the legends of the ring. Don't forget to ring the bell so you're always updated on our latest content. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.